The woman standing across the net from her was the defending champion, the world number 3, a player who had not lost on that particular patch of grass in what felt like forever. And what if I told you that somewhere in a cramped apartment back home, a mother was already too nervous to watch? This is the story of how a girl from Quezon City ended up on center court at Wimbledon, staring down the reigning champion of the entire tournament, with an entire archipelago of over 100 million people holding its breath behind her. Her name is Alex, and by the time this story ends, you are going to understand exactly why grown men were crying in a Makati shopping mall over a tennis match. But let's rewind, because nothing about this makes sense unless you go back to where it actually started. And where it started was nowhere near a tennis court at all. It started on cracked asphalt, under a basketball hoop in a country that has never, not once in its entire history, produced a player who could survive a full week at a Grand Slam. Basketball is the religion here. Tennis is an afterthought, squeezed into whatever leftover space the courts don't already claim. Alex has said herself that as a kid she couldn't even take a full step back to hit a shot without slamming into a hoop. Picture that for a second. A future Grand Slam giant killer, forced to shrink her own game just to fit inside the only space available to her. There were no manicured grass lawns, no academies on every corner, no path that other kids from her country had already walked, because that path simply did not exist yet. So at 13 years old, an age when most kids are worrying about homework and phones, Alex packed up and left. She left her home, her language, her family dinners, and moved across the world to Spain to chase something almost nobody believed a Filipino tennis player could actually reach. That decision alone should stop you for a second. 13. Alone in a foreign country, training against players who had grown up with everything she never had. Think about what that actually means day to day. No mother in the stands after a bad practice session. No familiar language echoing through the hallways. Just a young girl, a suitcase, and a belief that the only way to find out how good she could become was to leave everything comfortable behind. There is a particular kind of loneliness in that choice that most people never have to test themselves against, and she tested it at an age when most of us were still afraid of the dark. That is not a footnote in this story. That is the foundation the entire thing is built on, and here's the part that makes it even heavier. There was no guarantee. Nobody handed her a contract, a promise, a safety net. She could have spent years training abroad and still never cracked the top 100, still never played a single Grand Slam main draw match, and the sacrifice would have simply been a sacrifice, unrewarded, unremarked upon. One more talented kid who tried and did not quite make it. That is the version of this story that almost happened. Now fast forward, years of grinding on tour, years of near misses, years of almost nobody outside the sport knowing her name. And then June of 2026 arrives, and Alex walks into Wimbledon seated 29th, the first Filipino player in history to even be seated at a Grand Slam. Already a record. Already history. But nobody, not even her, could have predicted what was about to happen next. She opens with a dominant win. She survives a tense rematch against a player who had beaten her before. She keeps winning. Match after match, the pressure climbing, the whispers back home growing louder.